The day Ifeoma finally told her mother the truth, she thought her suffering was coming to an end. She thought the tears would stop. She thought the fear would disappear. And she thought leaving Lagos would solve everything. But she was wrong. Because the man who had broken her trust was not ready to let her go. And before this chapter of her life was over, she would make a decision that would change the future of her children forever. For several seconds after her mother asked the question, Ifeoma could not speak. The room felt smaller. The air felt heavier. And the tears she had spent years holding back suddenly refused to stay hidden. Her mother squeezed her hand gently. "My daughter," she said softly. "You can tell me." That was all it took. Years of pain came pouring out. The abandoned dreams. The insults. The fear. The sleepless nights. The constant walking on eggshells. The feeling of being trapped. Everything. For the first time, Ifeoma stopped protecting Emeka. For the first time, she stopped pretending everything was fine. And for the first time, someone truly understood what she had been carrying. Her mother sat quietly, listening, sometimes crying, sometimes shaking her head, sometimes covering her mouth in disbelief. As the story continued, her heart broke. Not only because of what her daughter had endured, but because she had not known. She had seen signs. She had suspected something. But she never imagined it had become this serious. When Ifeoma finally finished speaking, neither woman said anything for a while. The room was silent. Only the sound of the ceiling fan could be heard. Then her mother spoke. "My daughter." Her voice trembled. "You should never have carried this alone." At those words, Ifeoma broke down again. Years of strength disappeared. For the first time in a long time, she felt like somebody was protecting her. But neither woman knew what would happen next. Because Emeka was about to discover that the truth was no longer hidden. The following day felt tense. Very tense. Her mother barely spoke. She moved around the house quietly. Cooking, cleaning, watching, waiting. And when Emeka returned home that evening, she asked him to sit down. Immediately, he sensed something was wrong. The atmosphere felt different. He looked at Ifeoma, then at her mother. Nobody smiled. Nobody greeted warmly. Nobody pretended. And suddenly, he understood. "What happened?" he asked. Nobody answered immediately. Then Ifeoma's mother spoke. Calmly. Directly. As only a mother can. She asked him questions. Difficult questions. Questions he was not expecting. Questions that forced him to explain things he had spent years avoiding. At first he denied everything. Then he became defensive. Then angry. The conversation quickly became heated. The small room that had once held so much hope now felt full of tension. And before the night ended, one thing became clear. This family could not continue living like this. That night, Ifeoma barely slept. Her mother sat beside her. Thinking. Planning. Praying. And by morning, she had made her decision. She would take her daughter home. Back to the village. Back to safety. Back to the place where healing could begin. A few days later, Ifeoma packed her belongings. The children were confused. Too young to fully understand what was happening. They only knew that people looked worried. And that their grandmother seemed unusually serious. Bag after bag was packed. Clothes. Children's toys. Baby supplies. Small memories of a life that never became what she hoped. And then they left. As the bus pulled away from Lagos, Ifeoma stared out the window. The city slowly disappeared behind her. The crowded roads. The noisy markets. The endless struggle. Everything faded into the distance. And strangely, he felt relief. Not happiness. Not yet. But relief. For the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of what might happen when she got home. Because home was now somewhere else. The village welcomed her quietly. Her mother's compound was not luxurious. But it felt peaceful. The air felt different. The nights were quieter. The children played freely. And little by little, Ifeoma began healing. Months passed. Then more months. The children adjusted. She started helping around the farm. She sold produce in the local market. Life remained difficult. But it was predictable. And sometimes predictability is a blessing. For the first time in years, she laughed more. Slept better. Worried less. Even her mother noticed the change. The fear in her eyes was slowly disappearing. And everyone believed the worst chapter of her life had finally ended. Unfortunately, they were wrong. One afternoon, her phone rang. She looked at the screen. Her heart immediately sank. It was Emeka. She didn't answer. The phone stopped ringing. Then rang again. And again. And again. For days, the calls continued. Then came the messages. Long messages. Apologies. Promises. Regrets. Excuses. He claimed he had changed. He claimed he finally understood his mistakes. He claimed he wanted his family back. At first, Ifeoma ignored him. Then she started reading the messages. Then she started replying. Just occasionally. Very cautiously. And that was how the door reopened. Not all at once. Just a little. Weeks became months. The conversations increased. The apologies became more emotional. The promises became more convincing. And slowly, the certainty she once felt began fading. One evening, while sitting outside her mother's house, she asked herself a question. What if he has really changed? It was a dangerous question. Because once hope enters the conversation, logic often becomes weaker. And Emeka knew exactly what to say. He spoke about family. He spoke about the children. He spoke about starting over. He spoke about marriage. He spoke about doing things properly. Everything Ifeoma had wanted to hear for years. Everything. And for the first time, she started believing him. But there was one person who wasn't convinced. Her mother. The woman who had picked up the broken pieces. The woman who had watched her daughter cry. The woman who had witnessed the pain firsthand. And when she learned that Emeka wanted Ifeoma to return to Lagos, she said only one sentence. My daughter, be very careful. What happened next would change the course of Ifeoma's life forever. After speaking with her mother, Ifeoma sat quietly on her bed. Her mother's words refused to leave her mind. Be careful, my daughter. Not everyone who returns deserves the same place they left. Ifeoma sighed deeply. Part of her wanted to listen. Part of her wanted to ignore the warning. After all, this was Emeka. The man she had once imagined spending the rest of her life with. Outside, dark clouds gathered over the village. A cool wind blew through the open window. The evening was unusually quiet. Then her phone vibrated. She picked it up quickly. No message. No call. Just disappointment. Again. Ifeoma dropped the phone beside her and stared at the ceiling. For months she had prayed to see Emeka again. Now that he was finally back in Benue, she wasn't sure what she wanted. Answers. Closure. Or a second chance. Suddenly, the sound of thunder echoed across the sky. Minutes later, rain began to fall. Softly at first, Then heavily, Ifeoma stood and walked toward the window. The road outside was almost empty. People hurried home to escape the rain. Then she noticed something. A figure walking slowly through the downpour. At first she couldn't see clearly. The rain was too heavy. But as the figure moved closer, her heartbeat quickened. No, it couldn't be. She stepped closer to the window. The man stopped in front of her gate. His clothes were soaked. His shoulders looked tired. For several seconds he simply stood there, as if gathering courage, as if fighting a battle inside himself. Ifeoma's heart pounded. Then the man slowly opened the gate. Her breath caught. It was Emeka. Months had passed since she last saw him. Yet she recognized him instantly. He looked older, thinner, more worn out. But it was him. Ifeoma remained froze. She watched as Emeka walked toward the front door. The rain continued pouring over him. Still, he didn't turn back. Still, he kept walking. Finally he reached the doorstep. For a moment he stood there silently. Then he raised his hand and knocked. Knock. Ifeoma's entire body tensed. Another knock followed. Knock. Knock. Her heart raced. The moment she had imagined for months was finally here. Outside, Emeka stood beneath the rain, waiting. Inside, Ifeoma slowly walked toward the door. Neither of them knew that this single moment was about to change both of their lives forever. She reached for the handle and slowly opened the door. The moment their eyes met, time seemed to stop. "Hello, Ifeoma," Emeka said quietly. For a moment, Ifeoma could not breathe. The man standing outside her mother's house was Emeka. The same Emeka who had once made her believe in love again. The same Emeka who had promised to protect her. The same Emeka who had become the source of her pain. Months had passed since she left Lagos with her 2 children. Months since she packed her clothes in tears. Months since she walked away from the life she had built with him. Yet standing there at the doorway, drenched in rain from the long journey and covered in red village clay, Emeka looked nothing like the man she remembered. He looked tired, older, broken. Neither of them spoke. The evening breeze moved quietly through the compound. Somewhere in the distance, goats bleated as villagers returned from their farms. The world seemed normal. But for Ifeoma, everything had stopped. Her heart was beating so loudly she could hear it. "Good evening, Ifeoma," Emeka finally said again. His voice was softer than she remembered. The sound alone brought back memories she had tried so hard to bury. The first day she met him in the salon. The way he made her laugh. The promises. The dreams. The late night conversations. And then the pain. The arguments. The tears. The fear. Ifeoma's hands trembled. Not because she loved him. Not because she hated him. Because she no longer knew what she felt. Before she could respond, another voice came from inside the house. "What is he doing here?" It was her mother. The older woman stepped outside and immediately froze. The moment she saw Emeka, her expression changed. The warmth disappeared from her face. "What do you want?" she asked. Emeka greeted her respectfully. "Good evening, Mama." She ignored the greeting. "I asked you a question." The compound fell silent. Emeka lowered his eyes. "I came to see my family." The older woman laughed bitterly. "Family?" Her voice rose. "Was she your family when you were beating her?" Emeka said nothing. "Was she your family when she carried your child and cried every night?" Still he said nothing. "Was she your family when she begged you to stop?" Ifeoma looked down. Those memories still hurt. The older woman pointed toward her daughter. Do you know how many times I called her and heard pain in her voice? Emeka swallowed hard. His throat felt dry. For the first time in years, he had no excuse. No explanation. No defense. Only regret. The older woman shook her head. You should have thought about all this before she left. Emeka looked toward Ifeoma. His eyes were filled with sadness. I know. The answer surprised everyone. No argument. No anger. No pride. Just 2 words. I know. For several moments nobody spoke. Then Emeka slowly took a step forward. I came because I need to say something. The older woman immediately raised her hand. No. But Ifeoma stopped her. Mama. The older woman turned. Let him speak. The request shocked her mother. For a moment she wanted to refuse. Then she sighed. Fine. She folded her arms. But I will stay right here. Emeka nodded. That was fair. More than fair. He deserved far less. Slowly, he sat down on a wooden bench beneath the mango tree in the compound. The same tree where villagers often sat in the evening to escape the heat. Ifeoma remained standing. Keeping her distance. Keeping her guard up. Emeka stared at the ground. Gathering courage. Then he spoke. The day you left. His voice cracked. I thought I was angry. Ifeoma said nothing. I thought I would be happier. A bitter smile crossed his face. But after you left, I discovered something. The older woman remained silent. Emeka continued. The house became empty. Images flooded his mind. The small apartment in Lagos. The children's toys. The baby's cries. The sound of Ifeoma moving around the kitchen. The life he had taken for granted. It was quiet. His eyes became wet. Too quiet. For the first time, Ifeoma looked directly at him. Not because she believed him, but because she could hear pain in his voice. The kind that cannot be faked. I kept expecting to hear the children. He smiled sadly. I kept expecting to hear you. The memory hurt. Every corner of the apartment reminded him of his mistakes. The empty chair. The empty bed. The untouched plates. Everything reminded him of what he had lost. At first, he tried to ignore it. He spent more time outside. More time drinking. More time with friends. But no matter where he went, the emptiness followed him. One night, after returning home, he sat alone in the darkness. No television. No music. No noise. Just silence. That was the night reality finally hit him. For the first time, he admitted the truth. He missed his family. Not because they were gone. Because he had failed them. A tear rolled down his cheek. He wiped it away quickly. But it was too late. Everyone had seen it. Ifeoma's mother looked surprised. She had never imagined seeing Emeka cry. Neither had Ifeoma. The man who once seemed so strong suddenly looked vulnerable. Human. Broken. I made many mistakes, he continued. I know that. The older woman shook her head. Mistakes happen once. The words hit hard. What you did happened many times. Silence followed. Because she was right. Emeka lowered his head. Every painful memory returned. Every promise he had broken. Every time he had sworn he would change. Every time he failed. Every tear Ifeoma had cried. Every disappointment. Every scar. For years he blamed stress. He blamed money. He blamed work. He blamed everyone except himself. But sitting there in that village compound, he could no longer hide from the truth. The problem had been him. And for the first time in his life, he was ready to admit it. Ifeoma stared at him. Part of her wanted to believe him. Part of her remembered all the other promises. The promises that ended in disappointment. The promises that ended in pain. And deep inside her heart, a question remained. Had Emeka truly changed? Or was this simply another promise waiting to be broken? The compound was quiet. Only the sound of the evening wind could be heard. Emeka sat beneath the mango tree. Ifeoma stood a few steps away. Her mother remained nearby, watching everything carefully. No one trusted easily anymore. Too much had happened. Too many promises had been broken. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Ifeoma finally broke the silence. You said you miss your family. Her voice was calm. Almost too calm. Emeka nodded. I do. Ifeoma looked directly into his eyes. Do you know what happened after I left? Emeka lowered his head. He knew some of it. But not all. No, he admitted. I don't. A painful smile appeared on Ifeoma's face. The kind of smile that hides years of suffering. Then let me tell you. The older woman sat down quietly. Even she wanted Emeka to hear everything. Every single thing. Ifeoma took a deep breath. The first week after I arrived here, I cried every day. Her voice trembled. Not because I missed you. The words stung. But because I couldn't believe what my life had become. Emeka felt his chest tighten. I had 2 children. A newborn baby. A 3-year-old child. No money. No husband. No home except my mother's house. The memories returned clearly. The sleepless nights. The hunger. The fear. The uncertainty. Every day felt like a battle. Every morning she woke up wondering how she would survive. Do you know what it feels like to carry a baby on your back and still go to the farm? Emeka remained silent. Do you know what it feels like to leave your children just to earn enough money for food? His eyes filled with shame. He had never imagined the full reality. I worked in the rain. I worked under the hot sun. I worked when I was sick. Her voice cracked. I worked because I had no choice. Tears rolled down her face. The older woman reached over and gently touched her daughter's shoulder. Emeka could barely look at her. Every word felt like punishment. And maybe he deserved it. There were days we ate only once. The confession shocked him. His head immediately lifted. What? Ifeoma laughed sadly. You didn't know that? Emeka's face turned pale. The idea that his children had suffered like that was unbearable. There were nights I pretended I wasn't hungry so the children could eat. The tears came faster now. And while I was struggling here, people kept asking questions. The village was small. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody talked. Where is your husband? When is he coming? What happened? The questions never stopped. Each one felt like a knife. I was embarrassed. She wiped her face. Not because I was a single mother. Her voice grew stronger. But because I defended you for years. Emeka felt his stomach sink. Every word was true. Every painful word. For years she had protected him. Excused him. Believed him. Even when nobody else did. And he had rewarded that loyalty with more disappointment. The silence that followed felt heavy. Then something unexpected happened. A small voice came from behind the house. Mama. Everyone turned. It was our oldest child. The little boy stood quietly near the doorway. Half curious. Half confused. The child stared at Emeka. His eyes narrowed. As if trying to remember something. Emeka immediately froze. Months had passed since he had seen his son. The child looked taller. Older. Different. A lump formed in his throat. The little boy slowly walked closer. Then stopped. Still staring. Emeka wanted to speak. But no words came out. The child finally looked at his mother. Mama. He pointed toward Emeka. Who is that? The question hit harder than anything else. Harder than Mama's anger. Harder than Ifeoma's tears. Harder than the guilt. Because this was his son. His own son. And the child no longer recognized him. Emeka looked away and covered his face. His shoulders began to shake. For the first time since arriving, he openly cried. The older woman watched silently. Even she felt the weight of the moment. Ifeoma's eyes filled with tears. Not because she wanted to comfort him. Because seeing pain in her child's life broke her heart. The little boy looked confused. Mama. She gently pulled him close. The child rested against her side. That is your father. The boy stared at Emeka again. Father. The word felt strange. Distant. Unfamiliar. Emeka slowly looked up. Tears covered his face. Come here. The boy hesitated. Then looked at his mother. Ifeoma said nothing. She wasn't going to force him. Trust could not be forced. Not in adults. Not in children. The boy remained where he was. And Emeka understood. This was the consequence of his choices. Not punishment. Consequence. The evening sun slowly disappeared behind the trees. Darkness began to settle across the village. One by one, lanterns lit up in nearby compounds. Still nobody moved. Finally Emeka stood up. Slowly. Carefully. He looked at Ifeoma. Then at the children. Then at Mama. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. His voice was weak. But I want to try. Nobody responded. I want to be a father. Silence. I want to be a better man. Still silence. I want to make things right. The older woman finally spoke. You should have wanted that years ago. Again, she was right. Emeka nodded. He had no defense. No excuse. Only regret. The sky had become completely dark now. Crickets sang from the bushes. The village settled into the night. Emeka looked one last time at Ifeoma. I will come back tomorrow. Ifeoma's heart tightened. Part of her wanted him gone. Part of her wanted answers. Part of her wanted peace. But another part was afraid. Afraid of making the same mistake twice. Emeka took a step backward toward the gate. Then another. Before leaving, he spoke one final sentence. I know words are not enough anymore. His eyes met hers. So I will prove it with my actions. Then he turned and walked away into the darkness. Nobody stopped him. Nobody called him back. The compound remained silent long after he disappeared. That night, as Ifeoma lay awake beside her sleeping children, she stared into the darkness. Her mother's warning echoed in her mind. Her children's future weighed heavily on her heart. And somewhere between forgiveness and fear, she found herself asking the question she never wanted to ask again. Could a man like Emeka truly change? Or was she standing at the beginning of another heartbreak?